Start recording. All right, excellent. So I want to welcome all of you. This is the first in a series of webcasts that we're going to be doing. This one we're going to focus on staff notebooks, as you can see in the shared window here, and we're going to move on through a number of other ones over the coming weeks. You will note that I just added a new one today, actually, on the 15th of May, which is the K12 dashboard using Power BI. That's going to be a really good one. We're going to bring in a couple of experts from our what we call our STU, our special team units, and Jason Morales and Patrick LeBlanc. They actually, interestingly, Patrick is the kind of the guy who wrote the book on SQL, literally. So he'll be a great guy to come and see, worth your time to come watch. And we're going to go ahead and get started today with staff notebooks. So just in the chat window, if you wouldn't mind, how many of you have actually worked with OneNote in the past at all? So if you just kind of put, yeah, me, or hey, yes, whatever, something in there, so I kind of have an idea of how many of you have any experience there. One of the issues that I have seen, sounds like we've got some folks with some experience. A lot of what I have seen when I talk to people is when they first launched OneNote back in 2003 or 2005 or whenever, they opened it up, it was a blank sheet of paper or a white screen, and they really didn't know what to do with it. They looked at it and said, hey, these menus look really similar to Word. I guess I'll just go back to Word. I'm comfortable there. And so what I'm really trying to do with this is to probably today we're going to talk more about sort of experiences and how you can use it. So having been an IT director in a K-12 up until about a year ago myself, I would have loved to have had these staff notebooks. So we used OneNote quite extensively in my school district for tracking all of these shared notes and keeping track of all of our summer projects. That's actually how we handled all this. So it's something very near and dear to my heart. But one of the cool things that's happened in just the last couple of months actually is that the product team out in Redmond actually had launched last fall the class notebook. And what it did is it automatically created a notebook up in Office 365 and shared it out to all the students and set up some different sections, and it was great. And what we saw was an early set of adopters who started using this for their administration. And so we started talking with the product group, and they decided to go ahead and release another version of the product specifically for staff. And so that's what we're going to be using today. The two products are very, very similar. If you've seen Class Notebook, this is going to make a lot of sense to you. It's going to, look very similar. But what we're going to do with it today is we're really going to focus on how can you, as a K-12 IT pro, utilize this tool with your teams to be able to be more efficient through your summer planning. And the most important thing here is that this is not intended to be just me presenting the entire time. I'm happy to do so. Lord knows, and you can ask anybody else from Microsoft on here or customers I've talked to. I love to talk. So I could talk the entire hour, but you guys can also ask any questions you have, and I'm happy to answer them. So the first thing that I'm going to do is start with something that I rarely do. Lori's absolutely right. Start with something that I rarely do when I talk to educators or even a lot of times with IT pros, which is instead of showing you the product first, I'm going to show you how you install the product. And the reason why is because Staff Notebooks actually is a SharePoint app that you need to install into SharePoint Online or in Office 365. And what I have found is, even myself, but as I've worked with IT pros, sometimes when it's something new like SharePoint apps where you may not have ever worked with one before, sometimes it's kind of hard to really get into your mind, hey, I'm going to use this, I'm going to get started with it, until you realize, just how difficult or how simple it might be to install and get started. How safe is it? What kind of testing do I have to do? That type of stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring up and show you guys how you would go about initially getting this installed. So the first thing that you should know is if you go out to Bing and you search for OneNote Class Notebook Creator, the very first link that it's going to give you, you're welcome to follow along on your computers, but the first link it's going to give you is to the store where you can actually see the OneNote Class Notebook Creator. Now, we're not going to install from here. What I want you guys to see as IT pros is actually this overview section that's right down here. Right? This is really important because it gives you all of the important links that you're going to want to know about as you start working with Class Notebook and Staff Notebook. Now, I understand that I took you to the Class Notebook page, but that's because it's very mature and has the information on it that I want to give you. The great news is installing these is exactly the same for each of the two different products. So if you visit this top link here, aka.ms/OneNote.edu install, which I will paste in here for you, you can actually get to this page, which is step-by-step installation instructions for IT pros. So it'll give you the ability to just very easily step through this install. It takes about 5 minutes probably on average to do this. So yeah, and I think maybe that's what Tim was mentioning. First of all, I will tell you, if you're in Kentucky, you already have this. You can ignore this for this next 5 minutes, okay? For everyone else on the call, however, you'll want to pay attention to this. It's very simple to do. These instructions will take you through what I'm about to do for you. So you basically just come into your tenant. If you're the administrator, you go to the admin section or the control panel, if you will. Inside here, you'll notice over on the left-hand side that at the bottom you have SharePoint. You can jump directly to the SharePoint Administrator website. And once we're in here in the SharePoint admin website, the first thing we need to know about is an app catalog. We need to know if you have one and if you're an administrator of it. If you have multiple global admins in your Office 365 tenant, it's possible that someone else has created the app catalog and you don't yet have permission. So you'll want to, if you already have one, you'll want to select it, go to owners and manage administrators, and make sure that you have, like I do, admin access to the site as a site collection administrator. So that's going to be really important here if as you move forward. If you don't already have an app catalog or don't know if you do, just proceed because it will actually set one up for you. When I click on apps over here on the left, I'll just choose app catalog. If you don't have one, at this point it's going to ask you to set one up and of course make you the admin and you're all set. If you don't have access to it, it's going to tell you that and you'll be able to go to that section I just showed you. Once you get in here, this is the hardest part. You have to remember to come down here and go to Site Contents. So I went to App, then App Catalog, and then I'll go to Site Contents. Once I'm inside of Site Contents, what you guys will not see initially, most likely, is OneNote Class Notebook or OneNote Staff Notebook, because that's what you're going to add. So once you're in here, you'll simply click Add an App. This will bring you to your current store. You'll actually want to go to the SharePoint store right over here on the left-hand side. That'll take you to the online store where you can grab any apps, and then you can either scroll through the list or simply come up here to the search and type in OneNote and let it do this search for you. I used to tell people I was lazy. Now I've learned that I'm efficient. I'm not lazy. So I like search because it's a very efficient way to work. So you type in OneNote, you'll notice these two are here. All you have to do is click on Staff Notebook and you just click Add It. And so what happens once you click Add It, it'll ask you to trust the application. Once you have gone, I apparently closed the window I wanted to be in. Once you have clicked that you trust that app, I'm just going to get back here to my app catalog, my site contents real quick, guys. It'll show up just as mine did in those site contents. So here we go. Now you'll have this little purple OneNote Staff Notebook. The last step that you have to do, so far that's been really easy. We just go to the little ellipses menu up here in the upper right and simply drop it back down and go to Deployment. So under Deployment, this is where we're going to tell it, okay, we put the app into our tenant. Now, from where can I actually access this app? Which sites? And so what we want to do typically, and there are some other alternatives, but typically the schools I work with, they want to make sure that people can just deploy this from their OneDrive. And that's the example I'm going to use today because it makes this all very efficient, very easy to work with if individual users can do this directly from their own OneDrive for Business. So all you have to do to make that work is from the left-hand side, you will have this All Paths over there, and you'll simply select All Paths and click Add. It moves it over the right-hand side, and you click OK, and you're all set. And now you've deployed that and everyone can use it. So it really is that easy. That first document I showed you, the link I put into the meeting actually will take you directly to step-by-step instructions of how to do this. Just remember, it talks about class notebook. You can add both class notebook and staff notebook at the same time, following those same directions. Okay. With that, we went through sort of the IT pro section of that, and now we're going to move back into what do I need to do to get started here. It looks like I closed the wrong window or wrong tab, so bear with me while I get connected back up. Okay. So now you've installed the app, you've deployed the app to all paths, and so what we have now is a new feature that many of you may not have seen, but you know this little waffle menu that's up here in the upper left-hand corner. When I click on that waffle, it drops down, and I can see all of the web apps in Office 365 and get a shortcut to them. But down in the lower right-hand corner, you'll notice in your portal a little thing that says My Apps. If you'll click on that, now that you have deployed that to all paths, you will see these new icons. And so for you folks in Kentucky, pay attention again because we're back to what matters to everyone. So you guys already have this set up for sure, I know in Kentucky, and many of you I've worked with elsewise in your schools that I know we've gotten this set up as well. So all you have to do is click the waffle, click My Apps, and you'll see OneNote Staff Notebook here. And when you click on that, what it's going to do is launch a little simple wizard for you. Now, I've made my living for about 2 decades using Microsoft software, even before I worked here. And one of the things that I've always wanted to see was things becoming more intuitive, right? I love all of the flexibility, but sometimes I want it to just be simple to understand. And so I think you're going to find out this is about as intuitive as it gets. There are 4 options here, guys. There's create a notebook, there's add a new staff member, add a notebook co-owner, and get notebook links. I think that's all going to make perfect sense to you as we go through it. This basically just gives you an option to add an additional staff member after the fact. We're going to do that while we create one in the initial wizard. Same thing with the co-owner. So let's get started. Without further ado, I create a staff notebook. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to call this USD 365 Summer Projects. Right, whatever your school name is, however you choose to do it, we'll call this IT Summer Projects to be more specific. I'll click next, and what it tells me now is what a staff notebook actually consists of, which is 3, we call them sub notebooks. They're really section groups for those of you who said you've already used OneNote and are familiar with it. So a section is a tab at the top of your OneNote document, and a section group is exactly what it sounds like. It's a grouping of sections. We create one, which is collaboration space, that is shared to everyone in the notebook for both read and write capabilities. The content library is going to be read-only to everyone except the staff leader or the notebook owner, as we call them. And then finally, we have the private notebooks, which is where each staff member is going to get their own section group that only the staff leader can read and write along with that individual staff member. So this will make more sense as we go through it. Just remember they can only see their own section group. So this is where I would come in here and add a secondary co-owner to this. In this case, I'm going to add in my manager for oversight as I put this together. And so I'll simply put her name in there, click next. And now it comes in and says, okay, what staff members would you like to add? And so I can come in here and add Tim, and I can add let's see, who else do I have in here? Probably Joan and Jeff. So just add a few people in so I have real people in this notebook. I simply click next. By the way, on that, I should tell you, I'll go back here so you can see it. You can actually copy and paste in a list of usernames or email addresses, assuming that email address is their login username. You can paste these in a semicolon separated list. So if you have some Excel spreadsheet, something, you can export that to CSV and then just do a quick find and replace, as I'm sure you're all familiar with, to make that. It just needs to be semicolon separated. And the reason why is this is the same user picker that we use throughout SharePoint, very similar basically in what you use for Outlook in your email, right? You're just going to type in an email address and then semicolon space, and it'll look it up in the gal. So this is what I refer to as the staff template. And so this is where you determine what tabs or sections are going to exist by default in each of the staff members' individual lists. I'm going to stop for a second. Looks like Mike had a quick question here. Is it possible to utilize distribution lists? Not today. I think that's a great question, and I can tell you that's something that I've talked to the product team about, and I think right now it's just something that will be coming hopefully in the near future. I will tell you guys, it's a great point though that Mike brings up, which is we utilize the user voice site quite extensively. Hopefully you guys are all familiar with uservoice.com, and you can go there and look up pretty much most Microsoft products there. But the OneNote team, if you look at staff notebooks and class notebooks, they use that quite extensively to help prioritize what's most important to customers. So you guys will definitely want to go check that out and participate in those lists. Now, back to this template that I was talking about, I can add additional tabs. And so think about if I came in here and said, I want to add charts to this. And so with these charts, what's going to happen now is a new blank section is going to automatically be created in each staff member's notebook. Now, it's important to note because this question always comes up. You cannot come back in this wizard and just add another tab to everyone's section group from here, unfortunately, today. So once you've created, this is sort of an initial setup. Once the notebook's been created, then I'll show you ways that you can do that very easily through working together with your team members. This is just an example of what the output is going to look like. So we're going to have the staff leader or the notebook owner, however you want to refer to them, is going to have a view of everything, the collaboration space, the content library, as well as each of the staff members. And the staff members will see only their own section group. They will not even see the names of who else is participating, although they can determine that through collaboration and those things as we move forward. So I'll click create. What's going on here is a little bit of what I call Microsoft magic. So in the background, it's actually creating all the folders, subfolders, files, and everything to set up this elaborate notebook, as well as some demo content, and then setting all the permissions on it as I explained before. Once it's completed there, all I have to do is I can copy this URL and send it to anyone I like. Since we're on the phone with IT pros, I like to point out what's, not real sure what I just did there. But I want to make sure that I point out exactly. I'll come back here. So it's a great example. I have no idea. I clicked some button, did something strange, and lost my notebook. So, or lost my little wizard that was there at the end of it. How do I get back to it? Well, I do that very easily by clicking on Get Notebook Links, and it brings me right back to where I was. You'll see this notebook down at the bottom is the one we were working on. So I want to make sure you guys see this URL down here. It's just a typical URL that refers to my SharePoint site. The only difference is that it has this OneNote colon at the beginning, which is what tells it to open this in the OneNote application. So I can send this to any of my colleagues. I can strip off the OneNote if I want them to use the web-based version of it. So I'll just show you that right here. I can just copy and paste this whole thing. If I bring it into another tab, paste it in, it's going to launch the OneNote web app. And Charles, I will answer that in just a moment. That's a great question. So Charles asked, can you transfer the content to a new notebook, then delete the old? Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second. There are some right ways and wrong ways to go about that. So by just pasting that URL in, I was able to open this notebook in the web-based version. But most of the time, when you get this open, what just happened is, by the way, in the background, part of that Microsoft magic was we sent an email to every one of those participants within their Office 365 tenant and told them they now have access to this, and now a link has been placed in the Shared With Me folder. I understand if you have worked with Shared With Me, sometimes there can be a delay in how long it takes for that to show up in there. However, it will eventually show up there, and you can always get back to it the way I just showed you. So what I do at the end of creation of any of these, I just click on the little purple OneNote icon, and that again is because I'm efficient rather than lazy. It pops up and says, this location may be unsafe. It's the typical, it's coming from the web. Are you sure you want to do this? I say yes. my OneNote launches and immediately starts downloading and synchronizing this notebook. So what happens is when we create a staff notebook, by default, we always add into that some sample pages, which you are more than welcome to simply delete and clean up your notebook however you like. But again, what we found is when people walked in or opened up OneNote and was nothing but blank white canvas, they just didn't know quite how to get started. So we wanted to make sure to fill this in with a little bit of content so people knew where to begin. So the first thing I want to talk about, since Charles asked that question, is how do I take and move content into the staff notebook? So let's say, for example, you have an existing OneNote notebook that you've been using. Perhaps it's on a local file share or internal SharePoint site or who knows what. Maybe it's just personal on your hard drive, and you want to start sharing that out through a staff notebook. So the way to do that is through the Move Copy menu. So I can actually I'm going to go into I'll just go to, let's say, my personal OneNote notebook that I use for insane quantities of things. But if I come over here and let's say I want to take this page and just move this one page, I can just right click on a page, choose Move or Copy, Control Alt M for all of us nerds on the call, right? And now I get this dialog, which is going to become very familiar to you as you work in OneNote. This comes up constantly as you print things into OneNote, as you do anything with them. And it says, I can use any of my open notebooks and I can move this content directly to that open notebook. So if I look down here, I have the notebook we just created. Maybe I want to put that into the content library section. I simply select what portion of the library content section I want it in, and then choose if I wish to move it there or copy it. In this case, I'll choose copy and just place the copy there. Before I move on, I want to point out, it's important to note, I can do the same thing with a section, right? I can actually take this section and move or copy that entire section over, and I can move that into one of my existing section groups where it will then inherit the permissions, right? Because remember, a OneNote notebook in the background is really files and folders. So what we've done in the background is set up all the magic of how those permissions are set, and then when you copy that or move that into here, it actually then inherits those same permissions. Just to show you that it worked, you'll now see my wonderful photos and notes that I took at a house here not too long ago. So let's see, do we have any more other questions? Well, all right, perfect, great. I'm glad that answered your question, Charles. So if you have more questions, please keep typing them in. I think this works much better if I ensure that I answer everything you guys come across. So now we have a notebook. That really wasn't hard. I know I took up a fair amount of time getting there because I want to make sure you're comfortable, you understand, A, how do you install this application into your SharePoint Online or Office 365 tenant, and then B, how do you create a notebook? And remember, you can go back through and add additional staff members as I showed you in the wizard, all that type of stuff. Now we're going to get into the section of the conversation that I really like. This is my favorite part of it, where we talk about how could we really use this. And then I'm going to encourage you guys to just, it's the general crowdsourcing thing, right? You've got a bunch of your peers on here. So if you can think of other creative ways to utilize this, by all means, put it into the chat window so other people can see how you have used it or how you think you might use it, so we can all work together and learn from each other. So I'll tell you that one of the biggest things that I've used this for is printing Gantt charts into here. So as an IT director, I used Microsoft Project quite extensively. And so I wanted to be able to just store those Gantt charts in here. And so I would have taken those and put them into the collaboration space, right? I would just come in here and I would create a new section by clicking the little plus sign, call it charts, and then I would start putting my Gantt charts in here. And so although I don't have a Gantt chart ready to be printed today, placed in here today, the good thing is it works exactly the same as anything else that I would put into here. So if I go and open, say, a PDF file, right? So I'm just going to open any type of a file, and I can add that. That's probably a terrible example, but we'll go with it. Any type of file, whether I'm in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, third-party apps like Adobe, that I'm in right now, or anything else where you can print to paper, you can also print to OneNote. So OneNote by default installs itself as a printer. You'll see the Send to OneNote 2013. And I will tell you that I have actually seen a number of schools where the IT pros have removed that from the end users' computers. And all I can say is bad, bad, bad. No, just kidding. Stop doing that, right? This is your ticket to a paperless school. No kidding. I haven't owned a printer in over a year myself. So I do everything this way. Your teachers really become very comfortable with this, and it saves a ton of money on print and copy. But for your own purposes as IT pros, this is tremendous, right? How many times do you get different documents from the state, or you get documents from vendors that come in a PDF format, and you want to be able to just simply annotate over them the same way that I would do with a Gantt chart? So if I choose print, what's going to happen is it's just going to take this whole thing, prep it, and then send it over to OneNote for me. So what you will see is that I picked the absolute worst possible document to do this with because it's very artsy. It's now inserting that. So it's essentially like a series of macros that run. Now, when you do that, I will tell you by default, it's going to pop up with that move or copy dialog I told you to get familiar with and ask you, where did you want to print this to? I have changed my settings so that it always prints to whatever section I have open. That's important because, again, you guys as IT pros, if you start using this as much as I do, frankly, I don't want to have to deal with one extra dialog box every time to figure out where I want to put it. I just simply go to the section I'm going to want and then print it. So I'm going to take you can see here how it just printed the document exactly as it was in the PDF, right? And I'm going to show you in just a moment how I skipped that dialog. But you can see it's just in there. It's no big deal. Now, if I have a pen handy, right, I can come in here, select any color I want for my pen, and start immediately annotating or drawing right over the top of this document that I printed in here. Now that is fantastic. And even if you don't have a touchscreen device like I do with my Surface Pro 3, you can actually start typing right over the top of it. Here's a trick for IT pros. Don't click once on the document like I just did. See how it selected the bounding box? Because each printed page is an image. What you want to do is double click. Always double click. And now I can add my notes anywhere that I want to. And it's fully featured so that I can come in here and I can change all the styles, all the, anything that I normally would inside of any type of a word processor. I even have access to styles, right? Headings. And so I can go in and use that any way I want to annotate over my images or my printout. So you can also see that anytime that I type something, add something new, it gets its own bounding box so that I now have the free capabilities to move that around. So when we start talking about doing things like adding in Gantt charts or printing out vendor quotes, those types of things, and being able to mark those up and work together with our team, that has absolute tremendous value to be able to just come in and say, hey, I want you to take a look at this section right here. I'm not sure about this. I know that legal is going to have a problem with that. I talked to the superintendent yesterday, and he said there's no way we're doing that, right? Those types of things are very handy. I like that a lot. And so I'm going to take that even just a step further, although this probably has even more applicability in the classroom. Think of a teacher grading pages, but I love showing this because even for IT pros, this is fantastic. If I were to take and just insert audio recording right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just starting to record and I continue my annotation that I was already working on, right? And as I scroll through this document, it's recording my audio, it's recording anything that I wrote down or marked on the page, right? And now I can just come up here and stop that. Why does that matter? Because when I play that back, it's actually going to jump around in the page according to what I'm saying. You see, if I had the volume up where you guys could hear it, you would hear my voice having been recorded, and as you're hearing my voice, you see it jumping forward to whatever annotation I made at that exact moment, which is very, very, very powerful, right? To be able to give feedback to your employees and work with them. It's even so simple as you'll notice when I have an annotation selected, or this works with text as well. If you're just taking notes in a meeting, right? If you're setting in a board meeting, for instance, you've been taking notes, what happens is it actually places this little play marker right next to it, to any section. And if I click that play button, it'll start about 5 to 7 seconds ahead of that, start playing the audio from that point forward. So just think of while you're setting in meetings, you can set there, hit record audio, and then just take notes. Now all you have to do is write down the main points, and then you can jump back and listen to the audio of the conversation at any point. Now, it's always important to tell people if you're recording a conversation like we did before we started this one. That's my disclaimer. That's as much as you get from me in disclaimers. Okay. So I promised you I was going to show you, as IT pros, how to get rid of that dialogue, which I'm going to do real quickly. You go to File, and you choose Options, right? And then you come down to, oh, do you ever have that moment, to Send to OneNote right here. And in Send to OneNote, you have the ability to customize all types of and manner of things. In particular, I use the Print to OneNote, and I have some options there. I chose to create a new page in the current section. Depending on your preferences, you can certainly change that, or you can just put it back to Always Ask. So just showing you how to do that. There's a great thing when you use screen clippings. That's the next thing I'm going to show you as IT pros. And I'm going to leave that one so that it asks me just so you can see it. But screen clippings is another big thing that I use a lot. Many times I'm out browsing the web, and while in Windows 10 we're going to have a wonderful, magical new way to do this, but many times when I'm browsing the web, I want to be able to just take a very quick screenshot of it. And so I can use this handy little thing that pops up down here called Send to OneNote and click on Screen Clipping, and it'll let me capture the screen. I can also cheat because, again, I'm efficient and not lazy. But if I hold down Windows, Shift, and click S, it does the exact same thing, right? So Windows Shift S, which I really like as a nerd. I'm constantly looking for good keyboard shortcuts, and now I can just clip whatever section I want. It automatically comes up with the same dialog, right? It looks just like the move or copy dialog that we had before. I tell it where do I want this to go, and I'm going to tell it put it in my content library, and I want to put it right here in this same section. I say send to selected location. I could also just copy it straight to the clipboard and then paste it wherever I want it. So now when I bring up OneNote, there it is. It's clipped it. It tells me what web page. Since I was using Internet Explorer, and this doesn't work when I'm using Chrome. Thanks, Jeff Olander, for helping me figure all that out. But if you're using Internet Explorer, it actually tells you what was the name of the page, what was the URL, and the date and the time of this screen clipping, which is, I think, awesome as I'm working with my team members, so I can remember where that came from. Maybe I was looking at the official version of our tech plan that's already been submitted to the state, and so that stores the URL right to it. Some of those very cool things that get added in. I think some of the other ways I want to talk about as we keep going here in how you can use this with your teams. So I want to talk in that regard about the collaboration space in particular. One of the ways that I see this used quite frequently is creating a new section called back channel. Now, that's a term that we use a lot in Microsoft, but not something I had used in education until recently. And then I was talking to a teacher actually in Kentucky about 2 months ago, and she goes, "Oh yeah, we use back channeling." I said, "Wow, that's the first time I'd heard that in education." But essentially what this is the ability to share content in real time and communicate with one another. So what this comes down to is this. Let's say that that you as the IT director are sitting in a meeting with the superintendent as well as your infrastructure lead, right? And you guys want to be able to have a little bit of a conversation, maybe take a shared notes. Let's do that. So let's just assume this is shared notes. And so what can be going on here is that I'll grab my little black pen and we'll call this notes, right? And so I can start taking notes as I'm in here, right? I start taking any of the notes that I want to, and then my coworkers who are in the room with me, or my subordinates, whichever it is that I'm working with, they can all come in and take notes on this same page. And so what ends up happening is we can carry on a conversation without sort of disrupting the meeting, about, hey, we need to make sure we follow up on that, or those types of things. So a lot of times what's happening is we're just sitting there taking notes, and we're working together on the same page. And So all I've got to do is create a section called action items, right? I can even go so far as to set that as a heading. And with these action items, now I can come in here and create, oh man, we need to make sure that we get the quote. We need to get submit for board approval by 512. We need to diagram. You know, it can go on and on. Well, what I want to do is turn those into action items. That takes me to, so while we're sitting here working on back channeling, again, the idea is that I've got one or more, or two or more people working together on this. And so while someone may be taking down these core notes, other people are able to come in here and maybe say, you know, they're going to take care of it. They're the ones who are going to handle it. Maybe just put in their initials next to it. I'll say, oh, well, Tim will take care of that one. Preston will take care of that one, right? I'm going to have Jeff take care of this one. And so I can start going through all those types of things. As the person who is taking the notes, I can actually mark these as items that need to be completed by simply clicking on the to-do tag. Now what's cool about that is it actually puts a nice little check mark next to it for us that it needs to be done, right? And it's very, very handy because now I've started using a whole new feature in here called tags. And tags give me an all new ability to correlate data together across pages, across sections, but also just very easily to find important content. So if I come in here to find tags, if I just click on that little button up there, it automatically shows me that I have 3 items that are in the to-do list, right? And so that's wonderful because if I were somewhere else on the page, right, I could click on one of these and it would take me right to that particular task item, which is wonderful. It moves me directly to them. I want to point out, though, while you're in here, one of the most powerful parts of this tag summary is the ability to set the granularity of the search, right? So right now we're on this page, so I'm only looking at this page or page group, which I'll talk about shortly. I can also set that to look at this section, which means any page that's in this tab, which right now there's only one page under this section. But I can keep expanding that out to where I can see every tag in every page within this notebook. I can even get extreme and say all notebooks, right? Or today's notes. So if I have multiple notebooks, I can look for any tags in any of the notebooks that I've created this week, last week. So you can see here are all the different tags that have been created in notebooks that I work with. So very handy. I'm going to go back to limiting this, though, to just this page group, because that's important. Now I can make sure that my purview is appropriate to my purpose, which I just like to say because they're all, you know, it's just difficult. It's like my version of a limerick. But anyway, moving on from my horrible sense of humor here. So we go into these individual task lists, and as they get created or get completed, you can just come in and check the box. So let's say we've moved on beyond this note-taking section and we're actually into getting some of the work done, and so I can check these off. And as I do that, if I refresh this view or I've come back to it a day or so later, you can see very clearly which ones have been completed and which ones have not. Even better yet, I can filter out any of those completed items so that I can see only those which remain unfinished. Very handy, very quick to work together with from an IT pro standpoint throughout the summer. So I'm going to take that and move this all along just a little bit further with what I can do with tags, because I think this is probably one thing that most people aren't familiar with. You notice how I just went in and manually wrote in the names of those people who are going to be participating with me or taking care of these individual items. I could have just as easily changed the tags. So if I turn off these quotes, by the way, these are toggles, right? So it's a 3-stage toggle for to do. It's unchecked, checked, and non-existent, right? So if I simply select that line anywhere on the line, I can select the whole word, put my cursor anywhere in that line, in that paragraph, actually, and then click to do, and it toggles it to the next stage. Again, I'll just cycle through that so you can see it's a 3-stage toggle. What I can also do that most people don't realize is I can come down here to the bottom and create custom tags. So I can actually create a new tag and call this to do and then put perhaps the name or the initial of the person that I'm going to assign this to do for. And what's important about this is it gives me the ability to assign this to every individual that I work with. So you can see here, I like to use teams when I was doing this. I would come in and each different team that I was working with had a number assigned to them. And you can also have it automatically set the font color and highlight color, which makes sense in some cases. For me, it doesn't in to-dos. But now I have this whole new section, which is a to-do. And instead of just assigning this one, I use the to-do Lori, and that automatically separates her from any other to-do that I would create. Now imagine I could create another one which is a 2, a 3, right? And so the idea there is at a glance, I can easily see who that's assigned to. Again, if I come over here to my tag summary and just refresh the results, you can now see it has separated those, which makes it great because I can see how many to-dos Lori has, how many Tim has, right? And I can go through that list. It makes it very easy for me to be able to see those. And even if I use the same icon, which is what I would do, so for each group I would have some number assigned to them, it will still separate them out based on the name of the tag. So those tags are very handy. As you look through this, you can see there are lots of benefits to how you would use those. I would use tags to go in and mark like contracts as I looked at them, what sections of a contract I needed to follow up on, those types of things. I want to move into, though, now at this point, content library and what you guys can kind of do with it. So the content library, again, is a lot like a real library, right? In the fact that it's read-only to most of the staff members. The only person who can place items in here is the staff leader or the notebook owner. You can add additional staff leaders to it. The important thing to note, because this does come up often, is that a staff leader is not able to be also a staff member. So before we start this content library, you notice how we had every staff member's name. The staff leader cannot have their own section that is private by default in here. Now we're going to get into in a minute how you can kind of modify this and make some of that possible. But today it's probably still best to create a separate notebook for the staff leader to keep anything they want completely private, because remember, I can easily move or copy stuff from this shared notebook over to my private notebook, just almost as if they're in the exact same notebook. It's the same process. So while I'm in here in the content library, one of the most important things to use this for is policies and procedures. So what's great about this, I work with people, is not only can I put all the policies and procedures in here just as I work with my own team for summer project planning, but just think about throughout the year. If I could go in here and put in all of my policies and procedures in here, and then anytime somebody asks a question, let's say that a teacher reaches out to you and says, hey, could you send me an updated copy of the student acceptable use form? Sure. Let's say that I have that typed up, it's setting in here. They don't have access to this notebook, right? So all I have to do is click this little button here called Email Page. And what that will do, although I don't have Outlook launched right now, it will actually open a email. It opens Outlook, creates a new email, keeps all the rich formatting and everything from this page, right? You can see it automatically put the subject line in there. Again, I went into options and have mine automatically attach a OneNote so that my colleagues could just add this directly into their own OneNote notebook if they wish. But you can see it kept all of the rich formatting, all of the images, everything in there. And all I have to do is I just hit Email Page, put in the name of the person I'm going to send this to, and voila, it's off to the races, and they're going to get a copy of that policy. So it makes it very easy for me to send those things out and ensure that they always have the latest version of that, rather than going and looking for the Word document and trying to figure out, was that the most recent one? Is that the one I updated in September? Or is that the one from August? Right? So inside of here, I keep a single version, and it just keeps updating that for us. So that brings me to the next piece is, what if I already have a set of policies that have been pre-built and are in Word, for example, right? And I don't necessarily want to change that because it's in a shared on-prem site, I don't know, where somebody else had access. For whatever reason, I want to keep it in Word. Maybe it has some advanced formatting, something else that I want to use to do that. So what I tell people is, hey, no problem. What you do is you just grab your Word document, right, and simply drag and drop it into a blank OneNote page. Now, I get two options when I do that, guys. I get attach file or insert printout. I'm going to insert the printout. Now, the truth is both of those are going to attach the file. The difference is that when I choose printout, it also gives me a printout. So now I have the document. The document is actually stored right here in OneNote. This isn't a link, to it on my hard drive or in the server or anything else. So I've automatically shared that to all of my IT team members so they can all come in here and email that page. Now remember, they can't change it, which is what I want, but they can each just grab the latest policy and email it out without having to come back to me as the staff leader. But I can see all of this, and we can even work together. It's very possible that somebody could come in here and start annotating this and say, hey, this was the part we talked about. Remember, we needed to get that updated. So you can do things like that. Now, my recommendation is if you're going to use Word, just leave it like it is. And when somebody wants the policy, no problem. I can still email this page just as I did before. Now, what's cool about it is they get the printout where they can see it right here at a glance, which every page is an image in this email, right, because it was a printout. But they also get the OneNote page if they want to add it to their own OneNote, as well as the original Word document. So I like that because it's very thorough. Now, again, I added the OneNote piece, but by default, it takes the attachment that's in the OneNote page and attaches it. Automatically sets everything. It looks nice. I can just hit send, and they've all got that. Now, the last piece of this that's really important is I can do this with almost any type of file, right? Drag and drop it in there, a PDF, a Word document, project files, all these types of things. Well, anything that I want to store in here, I can. And what's great is this is actually just embedded in this page. So if I double click on it, it opens it up in Word, and I can actually make changes to this document right inside of Word. Now, I'm going to draw on it because it makes it easiest for me to show you what's going on. But I could also just simply come in here and turn off the stop inking, grab one of these, change the style, right? Now I go up here, I close the document, hit save, and that moment happens, that instant of, oh crap, where did I save that to, right? We've all seen that. Great news is it saved it right back here into the shared OneNote document where all of my staff members can see it. And all I have to do is right click. It's telling me the printout may be out of date. If I right click and say refresh printout, it runs a little macro. Basically, it opened it in Word. It then printed it back out to OneNote for me, and you can see all of those updates, right? There's where I changed the style. There's where I annotated over it, which is fantastic. So those are some of the really great options that you can use as you're working here in the policies and procedures. Now, dates and deadlines is another good one. You guys will find lots of creative ways to take advantage of that. And again, if there are things you're thinking of I haven't mentioned on how you want to use Content Library, by all means, put them in the chat windows so that your peers can also, share in your brilliance. So the last thing I want to talk about is the individuals sections, right? The staff member section. So I'm going to jump into Jeff since he's alphabetically first here. And what you're going to see, first of all, are these sections that we created about an hour ago when we were in the wizard. And you'll notice that the one I added myself is in there exactly the same as all the rest, the charts section. And so a lot of times what you're going to do is maybe have some content that they're going to be creating as they go through it, and it's up to them to create that content. What's great is as they enter information into this page, that info is automatically stored and shared, synchronized up to where up to Office 365 and into your OneDrive so that the staff leader also has immediate access to this same information. And so no one else, none of my other staff members can see inside of Jeff's folder. So this is essentially private between him and his manager or the staff leader. Now, one of the pieces I want to make sure I point out here, because I find digital inking extremely valuable to me, especially as I'm out working in like my data centers and stuff, and I need to start doing some basic diagramming on how we're going to resolve this particular issue, right? And so I want to be able to do that stuff, but I also, once I've started using my pen, I'm just going to take all of my notes in ink. right? And you'll notice that the word info at the top, even with my horrible handwriting, got automatically converted and saved as the title of this page. Now, what's really even more powerful about this is I can actually search my own handwritten notes. Now, there is a little bit of a delay, I will tell you, as you search for your notes. It takes a minute or two in the background to convert that. So if you write it and then immediately try to search for it, you might not find it. Give it 2 or 3 seconds, maybe 20, and it typically will go through an entire paragraph. But you can see here, it already had notes, indexed. So what it's really doing is a sort of a ink to text conversion in the background for you. Now, you do have a feature to take. If I come up here to draw and I put a lasso around that, I can actually right click on this and make some changes to it. So I can tell it to treat that as a drawing instead of handwriting if I want, right? And that gives me some different flexibility in how I work with it. I can also tell it to do ink to text, and that will actually convert it to text, right? And so there are times where that's very handy to use as well. The next thing that I want to make sure that I show you within this is the OCR capabilities within Office as well. And for the sake of time, as we're coming to the end here, I'll just explain it. But I can take any image and drop it in here. So I could just simply go to Insert. I could choose a picture either online or on my computer or through the scanner. I can insert that image directly into here, and it will do OCR on that image. So I'll just insert this one. And this image, which I apologize, I inserted that image right into the middle of that text. So you do want to make sure when you insert it, you do so in an intelligent fashion, I guess. But you want to insert that image, and now I can actually right-click on this image and tell it to make text in the image searchable. That's really handy because now this full powerful search that I have over here works even on what's in the image. You notice this word where I've searched for note, it's automatically finding the notebooks in there, and it's going through as we talk, and it's indexing that entire image and bringing it in. Now, that's fantastic in and of itself. I can also right click on that after I've selected it and tell it to select image from the text, so I can actually put that in onto my clipboard via copy and paste as well. The last thing I want to make sure I show you is on the search feature down here. I'm just going to pin this so that it doesn't go away, right? But it's the same search that I just ran. I typed in the word note, and now it came up over here with the results pinned. Now, what's important about this is, again, I get to control the granularity. Right now, the results you see are to search this notebook. I can limit that down and say search only this section, which is extremely powerful in having some control over that and to be able to get that search working the way that I want it to. So you can do that from here even if you don't pin it, right? But learning how to work with the search, both search and tagging inside of OneNote, will make this a far more powerful feature. The last thing I'll tell you about OCR and text recognition is that even when we did the audio recording, and you can, with the audio recording, simply right-click on where that audio recording is inserted and have it be searchable as well. So this is a great place as you're taking notes in particular meetings. You're going to want to take your notes inside this staff notebook section. You can, I want to make sure you guys understand because this comes up a lot, you can rename any of these that were created by the wizard. It's just a regular notebook once it's created. And so I could call this meeting notes. Now remember, when I was in that wizard, I could have changed all of these, right, to make them more relevant to the purpose of the notebook. And so I can also keep adding more sections, as many as I want. So not every staff member has to have the same tabs. Just the initial ones are auto-created. I can even come in here and create a new section group. And so what I would do here is perhaps create one that is for each year. And then as content becomes more stale, I can take and drag that entire section into a section group, right? And so what that does is it removes it right here from the section group. Now I want to make sure that I point out this as the last thing, which is the navigation component of this. Something that's very commonly confusing when you first start with these notebooks is, how do I keep track of where I am as I keep drilling further down in these section groups? So right now I can see that I'm in the USD 365 IT Summer Projects, and I'm in the Jeff Olander section group, right? The sub notebook, if you will. And then these are the sections that I'm in. When I drop into 2014, you'll see that that section group name here has changed. And if I mouse over it for a moment, it actually pops up and shows me exactly where I am within this notebook. Now, the most important new button once you start working with section groups is this little green arrow right here that you may not have seen before, and that's going to take you from this section group up to the parent section group, right? And so it just went up a level. And so learning how to navigate that is vitally important. So this is a great place to do employee evaluations, right? So you can go in and do manager evaluations. So you could go into your content library, drop in the evaluation form. Each individual staff member could come in, grab that evaluation form, simply right-click and copy, go back to their own section where they can write and go into the evaluation and hit paste. And now they've got the form you created right there and are able to work with it. They can even go so far as the last thing I'll show you is to, if you have set up a page that you really like the way it's laid out and you want to use this section the same way every time, like an evaluation form would be, then you can very easily set this as the template for that section. So you'll see up here in the insert menu, you have page templates, and I can select an existing template for a page, or if I click page templates at the bottom, I can actually come down here and tell it I want to, save current page as a template. So now this page becomes a template. I'm going to call this eval. And I can check a box that says set as default template for new pages in the current section. And what that does now is every time that I create a page in this section, you'll notice it's going to create a new one with that same template over and over. Obviously, I didn't use a real template here, but perhaps you could have had a form, right? I showed you how you can use checkboxes in your form. You can put in all kinds of different places where people can freeform add images or text or handwriting into your form to complete it, and then just set that as the default new place. Of course, classroom observations is a big one, not so much for summer IT planning, but that's probably one of the #1 places where I see people creating a template and setting that as the default for that section as they work with their staff members outside of the IT department. Professional development, this is just a great place to be able to come in honestly and keep track of what classes that you have taken, and then your manager will always know what it is that you've completed and have you up to date on that. So with that, guys, I'm at the end of my time. It doesn't look like there are any more questions in the chat room. You all are welcome to contact me at any time. You can email me or reach me on Twitter. Here's my Twitter handle and my email address. Make sure that you can get a hold of me, and you're welcome to reach out to me in either way, and I'm happy to help you at any time. I absolutely love OneNote. I work in it a lot, and can answer most of the questions you've got. And if you're having any types of issues, we can help you get that resolved in a timely fashion. So thank you guys for your time. With that, I'm definitely going to